I thought what I'd do is put my left arm into the rectum of the cow while collecting from the bull with my right at the same time. But of course, that's not going to work for a whole lot of reasons. Sounds interesting as long as I don't have to do a whole bunch of prep.
Right.
And I swear to God, I'm not saying that because I'm lazy. I'm not lazy.
The day when Mike actually fires me, I'm gonna weep with joy and give him a hug and say thank you.
No hard feelings.
Thank you.
My date corrected me.
How'd that work out?
Over. Never even made it to
One and done.
To dessert. Well, here it is then. It's episode number 352 of The Way I Heard It. It doesn't really have a title.
Because we don't know what it is yet.
We don't know what it is. What we do know for sure is that we're trying something new. And if you're watching on YouTube, you've already figured it out. We're in person in my office down in Santa Monica, where, with an extraordinary amount of good luck, we'll be able to do many, many more of these. Because as much as I've loved it, Chuck, as much as I've really, truly enjoyed the chance to sit with you virtually and interview many, many dozens of excellent subjects over the last couple of years, it's just simply not as satisfying as being face-to-face. Mano a mano.
Yes, I realize that you have found the virtual experience lacking in...
I wouldn't say lacking so much as I hate it.
That's it.
I just hate it.
I always confuse those two. Yeah.
What you're hearing now is ice falling into a couple of tumblers because I thought we'd celebrate this, our inaugural launch of an in-person podcast with a little snort of my grandfather's whiskey.
Can I tell you, I've had about 2 drinks in the last month and last 5 weeks, maybe.
Really?
Yeah, 2 total drinks.
All right.
One was with Deegan. Met him for a cocktail, and I thought, I invited him to drinks, and I thought, well, crap, I guess I better have a drink.
Michael Deegan, our old friend?
Yeah.
What a terrific drunk he is.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you never know when he's drunk, because he can put it away, man.
This guy is one of the great producers, one of the great commercial producers of all time.
Yeah.
He is, in no way is he overwhelming, but he's so constantly and consistently there,
yes,
doing everything you want a producer to do. He anticipates every problem there is. He always has a solution. He always has a smile. He's the consummate entertainer. He knows how to take care of the client well as the talent,
yes,
right? And he just manages egos and he solves problems. And honestly, there's so much you could learn from him, Chuck.
Well, let me just say that the greatest lesson I learned from him, the greatest thing he ever did was to keep me from dying when we did the dog thing, when we did the Novartis thing.
That is right.
Because
you were on the verge of full-on heat stroke.
Correct. Yeah, we were in San Francisco. We had scheduled a photo shoot. We were walking around San Francisco, and it wasn't super. It wasn't LA hot, but it was hot.
It was warm.
And of course, I'm in this suit that is just it's like 10 inches thick around. Just the only part of my face was the only part of my body that was not covered with thick fur. And they the people who designed this costume put zero R&D into the idea of there is a living human that must inhabit this thing.
Yeah.
And we walked around San Francisco and took pictures of me squatting in front of a fire hydrant and reading the paper, stuff like that.
All
you
good
holding
stuff.
a bag of crap.
Yes.
And then we came back and we were under the hot lights in the studio, and all of a sudden I was like, I think I need to sit down.
And everybody was still like, oh my God, you're right. There's nothing breathable about this thing. It's basically like a rubber suit held together with canvas with a thick layer of fur
with
on
a
the
bear
outside.
skin wrapped around it. Yeah.
So Deegan says, hey, I read about these NASCAR drivers who are in incredibly hot situations, and they have these body cooling suits.
Yeah.
And this is really what a great producer does. It's like in a twinkling.
Yes.
Calls are made, and a piece of technology arrives, and you put that thing on. I still remember you standing there in your old man boxer shorts and a wife beater, putting this thing over top of it, going, this is the most jacked up thing ever, and then putting that thing on. And then hours later, you were like, I feel like $100.
Are you kidding me? It was amazing.
So look, what's going to happen is, obviously we don't have a guest, we don't have a show. It's a miracle you're still listening or watching. Chuck is multitasking in ways I haven't seen. He's manipulating his cell phone now, trying to time this thing. Over to his right, out of the camera view, we have a computer that's set up. We have a mixing board that no one's operating. We have 3 cameras. We're sitting here, as I said, in my old office. And so we've asked people to ask questions, and you've aggregated a few.
Yes.
And really, it's just an excuse to drink some of this whiskey and catch up with you in person. So before you jump in, please lift the glass and have your 3rd drink of the month to our friend Michael Deegan,
Yes.
Cooling Suits, and all of the excellent listeners who have driven this podcast into the top 2,000. Where would we be without them? And where would I be without you? I mean, I'll probably fire you this week.
Of course
still,
you will.
It hasn't happened.
Which one is this? The Rick House?
It's the Rick House, yeah.
Well, that is different.
It is different.
Now, it's been a while, obviously since I've had some, but
The Rick House came out after the original juice.
Yeah.
It's a slightly higher proof, and it's a little younger. But we finished it in these French oak staves.
that's what I'm tasting.
It's got just a hint
The
of
oak.
sweetness to it and a little bit of oak that the first one didn't have. Anyway, it's delicious, and proceeds, shameless plug, of online sales benefit the MicroWorks Foundation. So there you go.
Mike, while we all know how busy you are, would you ever think of doing a road tour where you just talk to people in an auditorium or other setting? People could then ask you questions in person, and you could obviously choose to ignore them at will, but with more humor. Either way, can't wait for this new version. I'm sure it will be stellar, blah, 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 all your work, blah, 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 blah. Oh, what else did she say? And I've also wondered if you're going to do any more 6 Degrees history episodes. I love that show. History is one of my favorite subjects. That's Mary Baker Meyer.
Oh, I prefer it if you lead with the name in the future. So I like to visualize the name and then see the person in my mind's eye and imagine them asking.
Okay, so I have a question from Mary Baker Meyer.
Okay,
Mike.
I got it.
You got it? Okay.
I got it. Actually, no, I don't. What was the question?
Well, that is a good. Oh, would you ever consider of doing a road tour where you just talk to people in an auditorium?
No.
Great.
Actually, yes. Well, I mean, in a way, I hope this is kind of that. I would love for this podcast to take on a even more of a mobile quality.
Yeah.
And the truth is, that was my hope. A couple of years ago, when Dirty Jobs went back into production, you and I talked about, wouldn't it be great if, while I'm in Crazy Horse filming an episode or down in the Everglades, just to find somebody interesting locally, local color. You know? And then, find like a watering hole somewhere and sit down and have a conversation. That's why we wanted to do it. But of course, everything kind of went crazy with the lockdowns, and I don't know if we're going to do more Dirty Jobs, and we're trying to figure out right now what the next show is. But the reason I like Mary's question is that the thing I'm gravitating toward right now, and we just locked up the trademark, I'm happy to say, is called Road Trip, ROWED. Right? And it's because it's terribly clever, and it's what we did when we did those look-back episodes of Dirty Jobs.
Yes.
Right after the lockdowns. But I love the idea of basically just going on the road and finding people I think you should know, and just a combination of all the shows you've seen me do, Dirty Jobs, Somebody's Got to Do It, Returning the Favor, so it's bloody do-gooders and entrepreneurs and people you should know and mad scientists and inventors and with a little bit of immersion in it. So it's more of a show than a podcast. I don't really know, Mary. I mean, it's I get it. People do it. They travel around, they sit in auditoriums, and people come and they ask questions. And I mean, look, honestly, I would love to do that. Who am I kidding? I
think that would be a lot of fun.
It just seems too easy. It feels like I'm cheating a little bit.
I don't think but there's a lot involved in that. I mean, I know you would just show up, but
yeah, I would just show up.
There were
I'm not going to. I can't be bothered
things
with all that.
have to be.
Well, we have to put up lights and the microphones.
My gosh, like this.
See, what you have to understand, Mary, is that I was both punished and spoiled in equal parts by the success of Dirty Jobs, because even though it really hurt to do it, and even though there was really a lot of physical pain and not a lot of sleep and even some emotional trauma, it was the only show I've ever worked on or had worked on up to that point that didn't require anything from me in advance. Like nothing. Mm-hmm. And this is unheard of in the world of hosting. I've done game shows, and you need to prep for those. And I've done all kinds of other things for other networks that, require you to at least do some studying, do some level of prep. Dirty Jobs didn't demand that of me. In fact, when I tried to do it early on because I thought it would help me, it only hurt.
Then you're like, hey, wait a minute. No, I read this. You're telling, right?
That's right. Or
suddenly you're correcting them.
That's right. Or in my mind, it was like, no, I thought what I'd do is put my left arm into the rectum of the cow while collecting from the bull with my right at the same time. But of course, that's not going to work for a whole lot of reasons. And now all of a sudden, I'm doing something that doesn't comport with my plan. Mm-hmm. And then that feels weird and that feels wrong. And so it was really a humbling process to realize that the secret sauce in that show was my own discovery of what was going to happen next. Like the things I wasn't allowed to know or really shouldn't know were as important. In other words, people needed to see me learning on the show. And so what Mary's suggesting sounds interesting as long as I don't have to do a whole bunch of prep. Right. And I swear to God, I'm not saying that because I'm lazy. I'm not lazy. We offer work ethic scholarships here at MicroWorks. I just so much prefer to, whether we're filming a show or having a conversation, whatever it is. And I think it's more interesting to listen to as well when people are figuring it out as they go.
Excellent. Dawn Nickens.
What do you mean excellent?
Just excellent answer.
Excellent. You're glad I'm done, or you really enjoyed what I said?
You know what? I mean, I really enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed what you said. I felt like I hung on to every word and then saw a place when you looked like you were finished and decided to jump right in there.
See, the other thing about Dirty Jobs is even though you don't know what you're doing prior, you constantly know how you're doing when you're doing it. And seconds after you've done it, the feedback is both immediate and occasionally brutal, but always reliable. It's always there. You always knew how you were doing on that show. This podcast thing, I don't really know. I mean, I think we're having a good time now, and obviously dozens of people are hanging on to our every word. But it's not until you find some, wherever you go as a producer, how many people are listening, and are the advertisers happy, and all of these other things. We don't. It's just funny the way you look around to figure out whether or not you're doing it right, and waiting for somebody to give you a sign. Mary's right. If you're in an auditorium full of a bunch of people, you'll probably know.
You'll know immediately.
Yeah.
That's why it seems really cool. And the cool thing is we could have this whole setup right there in front of a live audience, do this live. How much more fun would that be?
To sit there with our stadium pals and our cooling suits, both fully engaged, watching our audience walk out in the middle of a sentence.
I'm going to demand air conditioning in the venue that we appear in. Okay.
All right. Well, fine. I'll get my green M&Ms and you'll get your air conditioner.
Right.
Perfect.
Okay. Charlene Stevenson. Chuck, have you considered quitting before Mike can fire you? No. I've never considered that. No, I always think that the day when Mike actually fires me, I'm gonna weep with joy and give him a hug and say thank you.
No hard feelings.
Thank you. No, it's all good, buddy. It's all good.
Sorry it lasted so long. No.
That's it. I'm moving on. Amanda Supplizio. Supplizio. How do you balance family life with older parents and your career, Michael Rowe?
Oh, I mean, really, it's not hard when you think about it. I mean, my existence is pretty simple. I mean, business-wise is complicated. There are a lot of plates, and they're always spinning, and you've had a front row seat to that. Mm-hmm. But my personal life, I keep on the down low for the most part. It's not like I have kids. It's not like they're dealing with, all that drama. It's not like that family reunion I described as a daily part of my life. It's it was so unusual because it doesn't happen all the time. My mom and dad are a big part of it, and my brothers and I, obviously. But, it's I guess it's a weird sort of balance because, I mean, for me, and we haven't talked about this a bunch, and I don't even know if she's asking this, but like my work-life balance before Dirty Jobs was amazing. I mean, it was the Travis McGee model. I took my retirement came in early installments. I worked when I wanted. I freelanced. it was really nobody knew who I was, and then that was fine. And I had enough money to be comfortable with, and I just had it figured out. Mm-hmm. I mean, I felt like I had it.
Right.
Right. And then, all of a sudden, one day it was like, it all worked because I didn't care about what I was doing for money.
Right.
I really didn't care. I mean, after 3 years on QVC and hundreds of commercials and hundreds of hosting gigs, I didn't care. I had a good time doing all of it, and I always tried to do my best work, but I just fundamentally didn't care about anything professionally. And then Dirty Jobs happened, which was very personal
Right.
to my mom and
Sure.
personal to my pop.
Sure.
And for that thing to have turned into a hit, I mean, it came with just a weird level of responsibility, I guess. I wanted to do a good job, not because I wanted to make a bunch of money, although I thought that would be pretty great.
Right.
I wanted to do a good job because I was doing a show to honor my family. And so that threw things really, really out of whack, like 250 days a year on the road.
Yeah.
And that happened later in life. I was 42 when I started shooting that show. And so, to be honest, there hasn't been any real balance since. But there was so much balance before that. And I'm not complaining at all. I love the business that I have, and I love the busyness of it. But it's not in balance. And I don't even really try to balance it anymore, honestly.
That was a very good answer, Mike.
Oh, you seem positively nonplussed, as the French would say.
Would they say it that way?
Yeah, they would. I said nonplussed once. I was on
Someone
a date.
corrected you?
My date corrected me.
How'd that work out?
Over. Never even made it to
One and done.
to dessert. Barely got through the amuse-bouche, as the French would say.
Yeah.
You pulled the old